Welcome to Beyond Expectations, a podcast where we explore the ideas, people, and innovations shaping the government of tomorrow. No other public recognition exemplifies the best of government service like the Arthur Flemming Award. This podcast highlights recent Flemming Award recipients and the incredible work being done across government today. I am Wagish Bhartia, your host and Chief Growth Officer at REI Systems, a proud sponsor of the Flemming Awards.
Today, I'm joined by Lieutenant Commander Melissa Devera from the Indian Health Service's Sanitation Facilities Construction Program. Melissa has strengthened the program through cross-boundary leadership and strategic partnerships. She has enabled IHS to deliver $3.5 billion in sanitation infrastructure projects under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Her work has expanded across to safe drinking water and sanitary waste disposal systems for American Indian and Alaska Native communities across the country. Melissa, thank you for being here. Melissa, the Flemming Awards recognize federal workers who exceed expectations. Can you talk about how this recognition itself reflects the work you have led to expand access to safe water and essential infrastructure for tribal nations?
Sure. Thank you for that question. This recognition is it's a shared effort because I didn't achieve this alone. I worked with a lot of engineers, mentors, students, and partners who make it really possible to expand access to safe drinking water and sanitation in tribal and vulnerable communities. So within the IHS, our engineers in the field, they did such a fantastic job of recruiting and mentoring and helping me leverage our partnerships with the Department of Energy's STEM Workforce Development Asset, ORISE. The ORISE is the Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Engineering, and also with the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, as well as the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps. So my team heavily used the Handshake platform actually to start that initial engagement with students and early career talent. So we were just very fortunate. We're fortunate at the Indian Health Service we have not only like a really strong human resources team for our civil service employees, but we also have we just have the best public health service liaisons, and that's a team that manages our Commission Corps officers and our officer programs. But within the Indian Health Service, our professional career tracks can be filled in one of two ways. You can fill them as a civil servant or as a United States Public Health Service Commission Corps officer. So I would say that this recognition just really reflects when the government collaborates effectively and invests wisely and really directs taxpayer resources directly into public health and opportunities.
Great. Not all of our listeners may be super familiar with the Indian Health Service. Do you mind giving a 2-minute overview of what it is, its core mission, and that sort of thing?
Sure. The Indian Health Service is an agency under Health and Human Services, and our mission is to raise the spiritual, mental, and physical health of American Indians and Alaska Natives to the highest level possible. So it's a good mission. My division was actually the Division of Sanitation Facilities Construction is a water, waste, and wastewater engineering division, and we were actually established by Public Law 86-121, to provide sanitation facilities to tribes.
Excellent. In your introduction, you talked a lot about how this wasn't an individual achievement or accomplishment, but rather a reflection of a number of different parties all working together. Can you talk a little bit more about the various governmental and non-governmental institutions that you've worked with and what you found to be the 2 or 3 lessons more broadly as to how collaboration and partnership in that sort of nature can be applied beyond IHS?
Sure. So, as far as governmental partnerships, we have the Department of Energy's ORISE program. Utilizing that was a program that I knew nothing about, and utilizing that program to bring interns or fellows into the Indian Health Service as we acted as host facilities. I think that was a partnership that we really didn't know that we needed. They are so much more in tuned with students and interns, and in particular, students studying STEM disciplines. And so for an old partnership, we have the United States Public Health Service, the Commission Corps, the Indian Health. My division was basically built around Commission Corps officers and engineers and environmental health officers in particular. So we really do have to credit the existence of our division to the Public Health Service. But that is an older partnership, and in 2020 we got into a formal agreement with the United States Public Health Service. So we have what's called the Commission Corps Headquarters and Indian Health Service Strategic Plan. And so the goal of that plan was really to figure out ways to, not only retain engineering talent in the Indian Health Service to help with the to help spend the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law funding, but also recruiting. And so historically, the Public Health Service has been our engineer pipeline. We've relied on its internship program, which is the junior officer, commissioned officer, student training and externship program. It's a mouthful. The junior co-step. We've relied on the junior co-step officers to come in as interns in our division and to kind of to feed our engineer pipeline. So that was kind of a program that maybe stumbled in the last few years, and it was really heavily noticeable in our division. We didn't realize how important the junior co-step program was, to the health of our engineering pipeline. So I'm happy to have that partnership to be able to restore that pipeline and then also to work with ORISE in order to build a new one.
Got it. So if you were sitting in a agency outside of IHS, outside of HHS, in a totally different part of government, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you would take with you from this partnership, establishing it and successfully executing through it? Are there lessons learned or principles that are more universal in terms of how you'd apply it moving forward?
Yeah, I think that there are definitely universal principles, and the biggest one, especially if you're talking about moving from any government service to any other government service, I would say that, especially with recruiting, the biggest principle is mission, is to really know and be connected with your agency's mission. That way, when you go out recruiting, that you're seeking people based on mission. I think that those competencies, that technical ability, the talent, you know, uh, it's super important, but I don't think that it is the number one indicator of somebody's success in government service. I think connectedness to an agency's mission is actually probably the number one indicator of how successful somebody will be.
Uh, it sounds like a lot of the principles and what you talked about earlier in terms of the various programs and the internships and externships is that talent sits at the center of a lot of the activity here. As you think about where we are today in the future of government as it pertains to the attraction, selection, and retention of talent, are there 2 or 3 things that you feel are particularly important for those listening to this podcast, either as a prospective government employee or someone who's hiring for the next government employee to consider?
Hmm. So there's definitely the mission. I would also say just, a desire to serve and a desire to help people. I don't think it matters what position you hold within the government service. I mean, we're all here to serve people, and I think that also having a sense of purpose is important. I think that really seeking people that have that sense of purpose, or if you're a person seeking something, seeking an agency that matches your purpose, or maybe if you don't know what your purpose is, getting out there and just have, if you're a student or a potential employee, you really want to maybe make sure that you're exposing yourself to as many experiences as possible so that you can find your purpose if you don't know what it is. I think that if you're an employer, you know, and you are like us and suffering from like 30 vacancy rates that, exceed 30%. I think we're over 40% in some of our divisions. I think it becomes really important for you to provide those opportunities for people to come in and see if your mission, aligns with somebody's personal purpose, and their skill set and their willingness to serve people. I think providing those opportunities is like internships and fellowships. I think that that's ex- I think it's undervalued. It's extremely important, especially for government service, because it really is kind of a non-committal way. It's almost like a working interview, right? You can bring somebody in for a couple months, right? So after 2, 3 months, I think if something is a good fit or not. So it's almost like an extended work interview, no commitment from either side. So people get to come and see, like, is this for me? Is this not for me? And even if it's not for them, I think it's still a very positive I think it's still a very positive thing, and it still can be a positive experience because, they know for sure that maybe this isn't exactly for me, but maybe their personal goals are, adjacent to your own mission, and you might still see that person just in a different type of a role. Maybe you're in the public sector or maybe somewhere else, maybe in the private sector. So I think, if I would for the agencies, I mean, I would just say like really try to give and to really try to hold and value um internships and those types of
There's a great
opportunities.
point. I think it's an under-leveraged asset for sure, and it's a win structure and also furthers the awareness of what government does more broadly. Even if the individual opts not to continue in a direct government role, there's an appreciation that otherwise from the outside in is harder to really understand for sure. Let's talk a little bit about large scale infrastructure projects and executing them in tribal communities, which have their own unique challenges. Can you talk a little bit about the lessons that have stayed with you from leading this work on the ground?
Sure. The biggest lesson I think is a central theme is mission. I think that finding the engineers and just finding your staff with the mission-driven mindset is really important, but I don't think that that's unique to just the Indian Health Service or the U.S. Public Health Service. I think that that likely applies to all government service in general. Technical capability and potential is extremely important, but it is still secondary to mission, which was not actually the mindset that I initially had when I moved into this role and took on some of the recruiting tasks, and moved into developing our partnerships. Someone can be the most technical and capable engineer, but if they don't have a sense of mission and service, they're not going to make the engineering decisions with the community that they're serving in mind. So I actually learned that mission was important because our division had a contract with a branding and marketing firm through OPM. We got one report on our current workforce experiences, and that's where I learned how important our mission was to our staff. It was like a really powerful report, and I wasn't really expecting that. So, it was that data that really from our staff, that changed my perspective and really made me realize that this is my people stay when we are overtasked and under-resourced. Like it's mission. Mission really does truly drive people. So what was in that report was they had asked our employees what are the best days working in the Indian Health Service Division of Sanitation Facilities Construction. And so the top 4 best days were number one, the first day of a project. Number 2 is the last day of a project. Um, Number 3 was the days spent in the field. So our staff and myself as well, we really love being boots on the ground. And number 4 was days of shared gratitude. So they placed so much value in even just one homeowner telling them thank you. And I completely agree with them. I can definitely say that my personal best day as an engineer, I've been doing this for 13 years, um, was after a meeting. And, after that meeting, I was told that I made them feel heard. And so when mission is like really important to an engineer, I think that challenges are met, like no matter like, technical challenges, funding challenges, I think that they're met through relationship building and really understanding our customers' needs, their resources and their capabilities. And I think that by empowering our tribal customers, whether it's like a homeowner or a tribal government leader or anybody in between. I think that empowering them with the knowledge to make informed decisions and choices for themselves and their families and communities is ultimately the hallmark of a really great engineer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there is a golden nugget in what you talked about that could be applied not just within IHS, but across government. It's the notion of that mission is more than simply a statement. It's a realization that the work that is done day in and day out has impact. And it's not just in numbers, it's in the individual, right? In the homeowner who says, thank you, I feel heard, or thank you for providing this, or what have you, that makes the difference in individuals' commitment to an agency, to a mission, and continuing when you're short staffed or there's a lot of things on your plate. Absolutely. 100%.
Yes, yes. Yeah. That was it was such a powerful thing to learn, and it helped. It really helped energize me and make me really want to do right by them and get them staff that were just like them.
Yep. Yep. And it's the battery that powers
Yeah.
a lot of our activity. Excellent. Very good. One of the aspects that the Flemming Awards puts emphasis on is the application of innovation and technology to advance mission. Can you talk a little bit about how you benefited from recent technologies or innovations to help do the work you do?
Sure. So by nature, the work that we do with the communities that we work with in the Indian Health Service, you might feel like you don't have a lot of opportunity to work with innovative tools or technologies, but our division does work, does try to incorporate new technologies. GIS is definitely so global information systems is definitely a big one. I think GIS is everywhere, so we utilize that a lot. We utilize it for documenting like open dumps and for where we have a lot of initiatives to start uploading our, as built so that we can be a little bit more quicker and responsive to tribes with designs and maybe with operational and maintenance capacity. Um, I will say one of the biggest technologies that I utilized over on the recruiting side was we utilized actually the Handshake platform, which gave us the opportunity to actually recruit students that were validated as current university students almost in real time. And that there was, because people's status changes so frequently in school, and people switch their majors, and people maybe drop out or start, or to be able to have that information that was guaranteed to be up to date. I think that is really what made our recruiting actions a lot leaner. And then of course they offer a suite of other tools that we took advantage of, so I think we had the opportunity to utilize those. um, And then we also are trying to utilize some technology in our division. We do have a hub site. I don't know if you've had a chance to visit that, but we do have a hub site that references the GIS, and it also provides a little transparency on the bipartisan infrastructure law projects that our division is working on, so people can actually go onto our hub site and they can kind of cruise around on the map and look at the different projects that are being funded, the funding amount, and the purpose of the projects. So I think there's a lot of opportunities if you look at it to be innovative with newer tools. And of course, we have AI coming up, and you know that's a newer technology that we're only recently allowed to use, but I do see engineers using it. The areas that I think that we'll see it used a lot in our division is probably for, predictive modeling. We do a lot of water distribution systems that need to be modeled. Also with creating dashboards and integrating systems like GIS. I do know we have a few engineers that I know of that are maybe IHS adjacent in other agencies, and they're already using AI to create dashboards to make their utility sampling plans and to automate their reminders to do sampling so that they can do their samples and report them to the EPA in a timely manner, which is so critically important. So, um, what I see utilizing a tool like AI doing is I see this as freeing up engineer time to, from administrative type tasks like that and give them more time to put into engineering and field work. Our engineers really like to be out in the field and they like to have their boots on the ground. So, that's just some of the ways that I think that even though we're working with more remote communities that have reduced capabilities and less access to, resources. I worked with a tribe that only recently got cell service. So yeah, you're working in some pretty remote communities, even though you're, you know, within, the US borders.
Yeah.
So I think that, there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities to use innovative tools. You're just going to have to be innovative about how you work it in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to that point about the cell service and the tribe that you all helped perhaps recently get cell service, what are the things that the average American does not know about the work that you do or the state of being of the various tribes that you think is important for folks to have a greater appreciation of?
Um, well, I guess that there's a lot that could be said about that. Um, I would say some of the things that might be surprising to some people is that we do have tribes that still haul water. So they live without piped water, and sometimes if they're living without piped water, they're also living without electricity. I think the most well-known tribe would be the Navajo. They do, but they have thousands of homes, where people are hauling their water. And I know that some of our engineers grew up that way. I know for a fact that like, the tribal leaders on the Navajo, like they're still hauling water as well. Um,
Sure. And this issue of safe water, clean water, is a personal one for you. You want to tell the audience a little bit about that and your upbringing and how that sort of guided your career and where you are today?
yeah, yeah. So, there's a couple key things like with water. My first experience with water issues was I didn't even know it was an issue. So when I was really, really young, we used to go visit my mom grew up in Montana at Hill 57, which is right outside of Great Falls. It's was known as it's kind of like a squatter's village, a little shanty town. And so she grew up hauling water from a community well. So there were a lot of families and a lot of, shacks and shanties, all hauling water from, one centralized well. There were outhouses. And I remember going to visit there during the summers. We would go every summer. And my cousins, were growing up in the same house that my mom was born in. So they were also still hauling water. And so I remember helping them haul water. I remember my cousins getting really mad at me for drinking water at night, because coming from, being a city kid, I didn't know that, I didn't think about, them not wanting to take me outside to, in the middle of the night to the outhouse. I think highly impactful experience was I grew up actually in Fallon, Nevada. And so that is a town that was infamous for really high arsenic levels, like 10 times the current limit. So I remember when I was young, I would get off the bus with my sister after school and we would come home. And so we lived in an apartment complex, I grew up like in the 80s, so I was a latchkey kid for sure with the rest of Gen X there. So I remember coming home with my sister in tow, and like all the other kids, some days there would be a note on the door that would just say, "Don't drink the water; arsenic levels are too high." But we were just kids, so I didn't really understand what that note meant or how long, like the time frame on when I could drink water again. Like I didn't really understand that. I just kind of took it down, didn't drink water, for maybe the night until I forgot. And then I'm pretty sure I didn't even always tell my mom that we had a note on the door. And I don't think that that was like an uncommon experience from any of the other kids growing up in the neighborhood there. So I think what that experience really brought for me was I think that that's where I kind of got like that public health service drive, and also that drive to work with tribes and smaller communities. So, like, what I think is ultimately important in engineering is for us to make sure that that we're providing people with all the information that they need in order to make really informed decisions for their own families, for their communities, maybe for themselves. I look back on that time and at how much information we did not have and that we could have used. And so, that will always kind of sit with me. And I think that that's always going to kind of drive me in what I'm looking for when I'm, when I'm trying to serve. So I think, government service was just really, I didn't know it way back then, but government service really was just a really good fit for me. And I'm just trying to find people that have kind of that same drive. They might not have the same exact story, but I'm pretty sure if everybody kind of sat and thought for a minute, they would really think about, especially somebody, that's public service driven, they would probably think of pretty similar incidences that they didn't realize were going to be impactful in their life and how they were really going to form their path and their decision and their own personal mission in the future.
Sure, no, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit about the Flemming Award. And again, congratulations on receiving such a prestigious honor. How does the award and the process that led towards it shape how you think about the future of government service, the future of government leadership, and how we can collectively inspire the next generation of public sector and public health professionals?
Sure. So for me, I think that this award reminds me that leadership is like service, and that it's all about people and it's about creating opportunities for others. I hope that my recognition inspires the teams that I'm working with to keep up the good work that they do, and also for them to like aim higher and do better than I did. I think that great leadership is legacy. And to me, that means, creating conditions for others to really surpass your own accomplishments. I, I had the opportunity to give an address at the recent American Indian Science and Engineering Society's National Conference, and I'm standing there, I'm looking out at the crowd and I'm talking. But in my head, I could not stop wondering if there was if there was somebody in the crowd, if there was a really young student in the crowd that would one day be in my position, or, even better, like be leading my division or be leading like the Indian Health Service in the future. So I thought that that was like such a profound moment for me to be standing up there. So what I ultimately hope is that the people that we are engaging with, that they get to see public service as a place for people, and it's a place for purpose, and it's a place for innovation. Even if you have to think innovatively about how you're going to use innovative tools. And I think that the leadership legacy of the Flemming Award lies in the not only like in the past honorees who sustained its tradition, but also in inspiring the next generations of the honorees that are going to continue to carry it forward because they choose to serve and see the difference that their service makes.
Many thanks to Lieutenant Commander Melissa Devera for her candor, expertise, and vision today. And many thanks to the teams behind the Flemming Awards and the National Academy of Public Administration for continuing to invest in our public sector leaders.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond Expectations. This podcast series is sponsored by REI Systems. At REI, we are reimagining government together. Until next time, keep believing in the power of innovation and public service.